Hey, everybody, and welcome back for another deep dive. Today, we're going back to the 1990s to take a look at some of the slang that was popular back then.
Ooh, fun.
Some of these slang terms you might still hear today.
Yeah, like some slang sticks around.
Right. Others kind of fade away.
Well, I think it's so interesting how slang can really give us a glimpse into what life was like back then.
Yeah, it's like a time capsule of words and phrases, right?
Totally.
And it's funny because some of those 90s slang terms are still totally rad today.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, who doesn't use dope to describe something awesome?
Uh-huh. Yeah, that's a great example. Dope is really interesting, actually, because it originated in African American vernacular English, and then it spread into mainstream use.
Wow.
It shows us how language is constantly evolving and changing.
Yeah, it's like language is alive, right?
It really is.
Okay, so let's move on to another classic 90s slang term, mad props.
Ooh,
That was
yes.
like the ultimate compliment.
It really was. It goes beyond just a simple good job.
Oh, for sure.
Mad, of course, means a lot, and then props is short for proper respect.
Hmm.
But it's more than just respect. It's about recognizing someone's skills and talents.
Totally. Like
Yeah.
if someone landed a sick skateboard trick, you'd give them mad props for their skills.
Exactly.
Speaking of intense reactions, what about when someone was tripping?
Oh, yeah. Tripping definitely has a stronger vibe than just overreacting.
Right.
Like if someone was freaking out over something small, you'd be like, chill out. You're tripping.
Totally. It's interesting how some slang terms are so visual.
Oh, yeah.
Like with tripping, you can picture someone like losing their balance.
Uh-huh. I can see that.
Speaking of moving, how about when you just had to bounce?
Ah, bounce. That was the perfect way to say, let's get out of here.
Yeah, like this party's lame, let's bounce.
Exactly. It just has that energy.
But not all 90s slang was lighthearted.
Oh, no, for sure.
What about the phrase, go postal? It's kind of a dark phrase.
It is a dark phrase, unfortunately, because it came from some real-life tragedies. But then it evolved to describe anyone who was just, losing it.
Yeah, like going crazy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's interesting how it kind of reflects those anxieties that people were feeling.
Yeah, it's like go postal became a way to talk about reaching your breaking point.
It did, and that's something that I think people can relate to even today.
Yeah, totally. It's like a universal feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we've talked about some pretty intense expressions, but, 90s slang wasn't all serious.
Oh, of course not.
Remember how everyone would start a story of, I was like,
Oh my gosh, yes. I was
Yeah.
that was the go-to phrase for introducing dialogue,
wait, what?
especially for younger
I
people.
was like, what's up?
Yeah.
And he was like, nothing much.
Haha, exactly. It's so casual and conversational.
Yeah, it just flows so naturally.
It does. That natural flow is a big part of how slang works.
Yeah, it's all about finding those concise and impactful ways to express yourself.
Totally. But sometimes concise can also be blunt.
Right.
Like when you tell someone to get over it.
Ooh, that's pretty straight to the point, isn't it?
It is.
Like, enough already, move on.
Yeah. But it can also be pretty harsh, especially if someone's going through something tough.
Right, like if someone said, my dog just ran away, and you're like, get over it.
Oh, yeah. Not a good look.
Okay, well, we've explored some of the serious side of 90s slang, but let's not forget those playful, over-the-top expressions.
Yeah, those are the best.
Like, what about open a can of whoop-ass?
Now that one is just pure comedic exaggeration.
Right, like who actually opens a can of,
Exactly. It's all about that over-the-top imagery.
it's like a playful threat.
It lets us have fun with language.
Okay, and speaking of playful, how can we forget that super exaggerated what's up from the 90s?
Oh, man. What's up? That's a perfect example of how the media can shape how we talk.
Right.
That super drawn-out pronunciation became so popular because of a beer commercial.
And it's amazing how just one commercial can have such a huge impact on language.
It's true.
Right.
What's up basically became the official greeting of the decade.
I know. It just shows how language and popular culture are so intertwined.
They really are.
Okay, last but not least, let's talk about all those awesome nicknames that were so popular in the 90s.
No, yeah.
It seemed like everyone had one. Four Eyes Mad Max.
I know. Nicknames are so cool. They often come from shared experiences or inside jokes.
Yeah, it's like having a secret language with your friends.
Right. Like, hey, Four Eyes want to go grab some pizza.
Exactly. And sometimes those nicknames can stick with you for life.
They can. It's like they become part of who you are.
Yeah, like you're no longer just Sarah, you're Scooter, because you're always on your skateboard.
Uh-huh. I love that. Nicknames definitely add a lot of personality and humor to how we talk.
They do. And that's what's so awesome about slang in general.
It lets us be creative with language.
Mm-hmm. And it reflects who we are and where we come from.
It's like a linguistic fingerprint.
I love that.
It's so cool.
It is. So what we've learned today is that the 1990s gave us some seriously awesome slang. And it makes you wonder what slang from today will stick around for years to come.
Doesn't it? What are the mad props and tripping moments of today?
Right. What words are capturing the essence of our time right now?
Such a good question.
It's fascinating to think about.
It is. Language is constantly changing and evolving, and it's so cool to be a part of it.
Well said. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us. We'll catch you next time on The Deep Dive.
See ya. Yeah, it really is amazing how just a few words can pack so much meaning.
I know, right? It's like each one is a little time capsule.
Totally.
Okay, so speaking of powerful phrases, let's talk about get over it.
Ooh, yeah, get over it. That's a classic 90s phrase for sure.
Spalt to,
It is blunt, isn't it?
like, move on already.
Right, but it's interesting because while it can be helpful sometimes,
Yeah.
it can also come across as kind of insensitive.
Totally depends on the situation. Right?
Exactly. Like if someone spills their coffee, you might be like, dude, get over it.
Yeah, right?
But if someone's going through a breakup, get over it is probably not the best response.
Definitely not. It's like telling them their feelings don't matter.
Yeah, you got to be sensitive.
For sure. So on a lighter note, what about when you wanted to playfully threaten someone?
Oh, you mean like open a can of whoop ass?
Exactly. That one's a classic.
It is. It's so over the top.
I know, right? Like no one's actually opening a can of...
Uh-huh, right. It's all about the imagery.
It's just a fun way to be like, don't mess with me.
Exactly. Slang lets us play with language.
Okay, and how can we forget about wassup?
Oh man, what's up? The ultimate 90s greeting.
It's iconic.
It really is. And you know, it's all thanks to that beer commercial.
That's right. Who knew a commercial could have such a big impact?
It's amazing, isn't it? Like, what's up became the greeting of the decade.
It really did.
Yeah.
Okay, before we wrap up, let's talk about all those awesome nicknames from the 90s.
Oh yeah, the nicknames. Everyone had one.
Four Eyes Mad Max.
It's like nicknames are a way to show you belong to a group.
Mm-hmm. Like a secret code.
Exactly. Like you could say, hey, Scooter, want to hang out?
And everyone would know who you're talking about.
Right. It's like those nicknames became part of their identity.
Totally. It's like you're not just Sarah, you're Scooter, because you're always zipping around.
Exactly. Nicknames add so much personality to language.
They do. And I think that's what makes slang so fascinating.
It is. It's like a glimpse into the culture of a time.
Yeah, and it shows us how creative we can be with language.
Absolutely.
So we've covered a lot of ground today, from blunt phrases to playful threats to iconic greetings.
It's been fun.
It has. And it all makes you wonder, what slang from today will be remembered years from now?
It does, doesn't it?
Like, what are the phrases that capture what it's like to live right now?
I don't know, but it's exciting to think about.
I think so too. Language is always changing, and it's awesome to be a part of that change.
Totally. It's like we're all contributing to the evolution of language.
And that's pretty cool.
It is. It's
Well,
like we're all leaving our mark on the world through the words we use.
So we talked about slang terms, slang that's serious and slang that's not so serious. But what about nicknames? Those were huge in the 90s.
Oh, yeah, the nicknames. Four Eyes Mad Max.
Everyone had one. Why were nicknames so big back then?
Well, I think nicknames are all about connection, you know?
How?
Like they can be a term of endearment or they can be like playful teasing. And they often come from shared experiences like inside jokes or maybe just a funny moment that happened one time.
So it's like a way to personalize language.
Exactly. It's like you're creating a special bond with someone through a nickname.
And it's not just limited to friends.
Right.
No.
Oh, no, not at all. Families use nicknames. Couples use nicknames. Even entire communities can have nicknames for people.
That's true. Like everyone in town knows Old Man Withers, even though his real name is probably something totally different.
Exactly. It's like a nickname creates a sense of belonging.
Like you're part of the in crowd.
Yeah. And sometimes those nicknames can stick with a person for their whole life.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
It's like the nickname becomes more well-known than their actual name.
Right. Think about all the famous people who are known by their nicknames, like athletes and musicians.
Yeah. Like the boss or the material girl.
Those nicknames become part of their persona, you know?
It's like a nickname is a shortcut to understanding someone.
It's true. It's like a little window into their personality.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into 90s slang, what have we learned?
Well, I think one of the biggest things we've learned is that slang is a reflection of who we are.
Like a mirror to society.
Yeah. It tells us about our values, what we find funny, what scares us.
So it's not just about the words themselves, it's about what those words reveal about us.
Exactly. And even though we're talking about the 90s, I think we can still learn a lot from 90s slang today.
Like what?
Well, for one thing, it reminds us that language is always changing.
It's like a living thing, always growing and evolving.
That's right. And I think it's important to stay open to those changes, to embrace the evolution of language.
So basically, don't be a stick in the mud.
Ah, pretty much. Be curious about language. Pay attention to how people are talking.
Like, be a language detective.
Exactly. You never know. You might even discover the next big slang term.
That's a good point. Well, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive. It's been totally rad exploring the world of 90s slang.
It has been fun.
Huge thanks to our expert for sharing their insights,
My pleasure.
and to all of you for tuning in. We'll catch you next time on The Deep Dive.